Hi, folks. I don't know why I have these in because I've taken myself off Bluetooth. Boy, this light really makes me look old. Um, anyway, getting a chance to sit outside during lunch while I break from calling people about a certain proprietary surgery procedure. I don't know that I really can talk more about it. Um, I'm actually at some point maybe going to develop a course about the procedure and rehab recovery. I've had some talks with my boss about that, but I don't really have permission to talk about the procedure itself much, so I don't want to violate that. But anyway, two things. Number one, um, you might have seen I put up a Patreon. I actually did a post that has the link on it. Somebody suggested I do that. I'll keep doing this stuff without support, but it is, of course, helpful to get support. The other night, I did a YouTube. I don't know if you watched the video. It says it's got about not quite 70 views, but it doesn't mean people watched the whole thing because it was long. It's like an hour and 17 minutes, and I don't think I've ever done that long a recording before, but I did put a lot of time into that. Could have put more time to make it more polished, but I wanted to get it out because it was a timely discussion on getting rid of vaccine mandates. Actually, I'm going to bring that up right now, besides the Patreon. But anyway, I was just going to say, if you don't mind, if you're capable of supporting me, if you've gotten actual value out of the videos I've done, whether it be for documentation or anything, then yeah, a little support would be great, helpful. I did mention on my post I have 12 kids, so not all of them are reliant upon me, but most of them are reliant upon me for support. What did I say I was going to touch base on? See, that's the problem with sitting out here in the hot sun. It kind of melts the mind, and then you can't remember where you were left off. Mandates. Anyway, let me go on to the topic I was going to talk about, which is the argument. The argument. You know what argument I'm talking about. So there's a study that just came out from Israel. Or no, I'm sorry, the UK. It was a small study. And it seemed to suggest there was a link between the COVID vaccine and young teenage boys, and they included age 12, which technically isn't teenage, but 12 to 17. They found that they were something like, I want to say 17 times more likely to get myocarditis after the vaccine than girls. But there was another study, a large study done, that seems to suggest that boys are still more likely to get myocarditis if they get an infection of COVID than getting the shot. And so, just like everything, there's some mixed data. The benefit of the CDC data is it's a larger group, whereas the UK study is small. So when you have larger numbers, obviously you can be a little more sure of cause and effect relationship. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that as it relates to the argument of exemption from the vaccine. And I've openly admitted that perhaps if you get the vaccine, you'll have a lower risk of getting COVID, and that your risk of having an adverse event from the vaccine is pretty low. In fact, it would seem, bad risk. So it would seem that the overall net benefit with the risk that you're taking from not getting the vaccine is greater than getting the vaccine. So that would seem to negate my position of not wanting the vaccine. But it's not those grounds that I base my decision on. So I know I inherently, according to research that we've got right now, may have a greater risk with not taking it. And I've chosen to take unconventional methods, unconventional at least as far as the CDC is concerned. By the way, maybe I'll talk about, you probably figured what my unconventional one is if you've watched my videos. But anyway, I know I'm taking that risk, and that's not my argument. And that can't be your argument. You will get in an endless, excuse the term, pissing match with people that are pro-vaccine, COVID vaccine, if you constantly try to bring up risk of getting vaccinated, because while we do know anecdotal stories, and I know several scary stories personally of patients of mine with bad side effects, two with a totally life-altering side effect. And while we know those anecdotally, we know that the stats demonstrate that those probably are not as high as the risk of not taking the vaccine. So it can't be our argument. So I would encourage you to stay away from that argument. The main argument you've got to focus on is the rights of the individual. The rights of the individual to accept or refuse care. I've used previously the analogy of obesity, that we don't force obese patients to get stomach banding and restrict their diets. In fact, we do practically the opposite. Especially, have you ever seen the garbage that's being fed them in the hospitals? And so what ends up happening is these obese people not only impact themselves, but they impact a whole lot of other people, because they, in turn, help drive up the premiums of the insurance for everybody. That in fact impacts quality of life. They end up, because of their size, when they need care, they end up injuring others. That happens. We all know people have been injured with working with obese patients. If you've been in healthcare for any time, you know. So that is a negative impact upon others, detrimental to their life. And then, of course, all associated risk factors with that, like diabetes and heart disease. And I shared the story not too long ago where a trucker collapsed a house when he ran his truck into the house because of a heart attack, and he was only in his 50s. And we know that obesity is the number one contributing factor in that. So, with that said, we don't make people get bans. We don't make them get restricted diets, because we recognize in this country freedom. And still, obesity claims, with its combined comorbidities, more lives per year than COVID. So, with that said, we can make an argument from that. It boils down to patient rights, because if we're going to say, enforce the vaccine, because not only will it save your life, but potentially more lives of other people, then I would argue, and obesity is the best example, I believe, from an analogy standpoint. Okay, then if we're going to do that, we must therefore enforce banding of obese patients' stomachs and restricted calorie diets, because they're doing more damage to the population of the United States than COVID. It's just not as sensational. And frankly, some of the most outspoken people I've seen related to the vaccine are some of the most in need of some calorie restriction. But perhaps we've all been there. I've been in the overweight category. Fortunately, I'm not now, but I could still stand to lose a little bit of weight. So physician, heal thyself, right? I need to work on that. But with that said, just a reminder, if you can support me through Patreon, awesome. If you can't, I'm going to still do this. Doesn't matter. So anyway, the Rehab and Documentation Guru, signing off. Take care. God bless.